150,000 U.S. service members, men and women, have died by suicide since the end of the conflict. We have lost more of our brothers and sisters and members of community to suicide and the struggles inherent in transition from 2001 to 2011 than we have in both the Afghan and the Iraqi campaigns combined. So it's apparent, as you may have read, and if you haven't, then I'm going to share with you, it's apparent that the systems that we've created in society to address the struggles for service members in transition are not in any way, shape, or form meeting the mark. My name is Mark Arafsky, and I'm a U.S. veteran of the Afghan campaign, 14 years Army infantry. I got out in 2011 after a very difficult tour in Afghanistan, 2009 to 2010. It was the highest U.S. casualty producing tour. We lost 21 people out of one company in the first month, and the deployment continued to rage on from there. I joined the military when I was 19 years old, and I never looked back. And I did so to leave a community and a way of being that had no future in sight other than a jail cell or death. To leave that socioeconomically depressed area, the broken home, the parents of substance abuse and physical abuse and all of those things. And the military very quickly, the Army very quickly became my mother, my father, my coach, my guide, my mentor, and the things that I needed that I wasn't getting at home. When I left military service in 2011, I became very depressed. And I spent about 8 or 9 months at home on the couch, staring at a pistol, wondering what it would taste like in my mouth. And I remember the scene behind me kind of is a reflection of staring out the sliding glass door to my home with my children bouncing up and down on my legs saying, "Dad, Dad, Dad," and I was in the sandbox. I was 3,000 miles away in Afghanistan still. I isolated. I didn't know how to connect with anyone. I didn't know how to connect with members of my community, and I didn't feel like I was understood, and I didn't feel like I could understand other human beings. I tried the things that folks talked about trying, like going back to school or getting a job. I tried both of those, and I went to school for a little while, and I did well for a little while, and then I dropped out in the second semester. And then I went back to work because people said you got to get a job, and I felt productive and like I had something to focus on for a short period of time. And then that felt like I wasn't accomplishing anything, and I still felt empty despite the number of dollars that I brought in per month. Sometime in 2013, I relapsed, and I rode the tip of a needle all the way to Sacramento, California. And as I sat in a hotel room with piles of methamphetamine, and this thought occurring to me again and again that I could just load up a good one and press the plunger and check out, I realized that that's not the way that I wanted to leave the earth, and that in the military, the way that we accomplish road marches from anywhere from 8 miles to 12 miles to 25 miles to 100 miles is to simply put one foot in front of the other. So I found myself volunteering with a veteran nonprofit organization in Olympia, Washington, and I was riding around in the front seat of a truck with a friend of mine named Jackson Sillers, and we were building vegetable gardens on a native reservation down in Chehalis, on the Chehalis reservation, when 2 white dudes building gardens on a reservation. I very quickly became comfortable with Jackson, and so for the weeks that we were down there and riding back and forth in the truck, I began to dump out a lot of the poison and the toxicity that I was carrying from deployment and from my time in service. And I told Jackson, I said, "You know, Jackson, man, the only thing that I've wanted to do since I left service is to take a fucking vacation." I'm gonna
it won't be the first time you serve.
And I told Jackson, I said, I want to take the type of vacation where we're not standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon with a tour bus in the background, or at Disneyland with the kids bouncing up and down on the shoulders with the Mickey Mouse hats on. I said the type of vacation where I could go out in the wilderness and dig a hole and scream into it. Because I'm carrying a lot. I'm carrying a lot of stuff from my childhood. I'm carrying a lot of stuff from military service. I'm carrying a lot of stuff from military, from combat, and since I left the service, I cannot identify within myself who I am. The only thing that I've ever known is the rank that I have and the position that I have and the responsibilities to the 35 service members that I'm in charge of and the equipment that we have and the missions that we're responsible for executing. But since I've left service, I don't know who I am. Everything that I've ever known for the last 14 years is behind the confines of a military installation. My brothers and my sisters to my front, my left, my right, and my rear, they're gone. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what gifts I have to share out here in this world. He's from Olympia, and there's a lot of hippy-dippy stuff going on down there in Olympia. And there's a lot of activism and evergreen, and it's all good stuff. And he said, Mark, it sounds like the vacation that you're talking about taking is a vision quest. And I laughed at him, because I'm 14 years hard-charging, door-kicking, bullet-slinging infantryman. And I'm working for a nonprofit organization that's in the epicenter of hippiedom in all the beautiful ways. And I said, what kind of frou-frou crap is a vision quest? And he said, it's this pan-cultural. And I said, bro, I didn't graduate from college, so when you start coming out with these big words, man, I don't know what pan-cultural means. So he stopped and he thought about it for a while. And he said, brother, you know, Lakota and indigenous warriors from around the planet. And I said, okay, you have my attention. You said warriors. He said that when warriors would return from service and they would return from war in indigenous cultures, elders would meet them outside of their village, outside of their tribe. And there would be a series of steps and sequence that they would move through. A war detox, if you will, or a service detox. A spiritual cleansing. Where these returning service members, these returning warriors had an opportunity to do exactly what you said, to dig a hole and to scream in it. And to walk through some self-generated ceremony and some ceremonies of purification. So that they could return to their village clean. And he said to me that the elders, they understood because they had been in service themselves and they had been in war with other tribes and with other communities themselves, and they understood that in order to come back to the village and to be a productive member of the village, they had to go through this process. And they also understood that these returning service members contained wisdom and insight that was absolutely necessary for the long-term survivability and sustainability of the community at large. And I was fascinated by that. And I jumped on the phone and I called the executive director of one of these organizations that led these particular outings, and we had a long conversation. It was a good solid 2.5, 3 hours on the telephone. And several months later, I found myself in the middle of the desert in the Kingston Mountain Range on a solo with 6 gallons of water, a tarp, and a sleeping bag, armed and equipped with an intention statement. And the intention statement at the time defined and answered the questions: who am I? What are my gifts? What gifts do I have to share with community? And what is my purpose on the planet? Before I left to go on this vision quest, I carried a pistol with me everywhere I went. I woke up 3 to 4 times a night, 4 to 5 nights a week to check the locks on all the doors. I was terrified of outdoor crowded spaces in relation to different things that I had experienced in theater, multiple suicide blasts in crowded outdoor spaces, 3 in a month. I was socially awkward. I isolated. As I mentioned, I struggled with suicidal ideation, drug addiction, alcoholism. And as I was sitting out there in the desert on my second day and into my 3rd day, the environment began to resemble environments that I've experienced a great deal of turmoil and conflict in related to Afghanistan and Iraq. And so my mind would start to play through some of the different scenarios that I've seen and witnessed and participated in, and yet, in the absence of food and being out there by myself, sitting with my ass firmly planted on the ground, the root of my soul felt at peace. And so I was holding 2 truths simultaneously. One is this environment, like so many others that I encounter, like crowded outdoor spaces in the desert or different, jam-packed traffic situations, trigger me. And I have this physiological response of palms sweating and heart racing and mind mind all over the place and panic. And yet I'm sitting in this environment where I feel completely supported by the earth, by the little creepy crawly things, the buzz of the bees through the blooming desert, and the sounds of lizards scurrying through the sand, doing push-ups on the branches of Joshua trees. And so it was these two truths. One is, yes, this environment triggers me, and at the same time I feel peace. And the realization that I was able to come to in that moment was that these things that have happened in the past, although I'll have triggers, they're not related to and don't have to impact my moment of now. And that was probably one of many significant epiphanies that occurred to me out on this experience. And when I came home from this experience, the gun that I had taken apart before I left stayed in the top of the closet. When my head hit the pillow at night, I went to sleep. The nightmares that I had on a regular basis subsided substantially, and I no longer had a fear of crowded outdoor spaces. So I wanted to see if it worked for some other people, and I started talking to some of my friends about it. And in ones and twos, we started sending people down to these experiences. Because just because it worked for me didn't mean that it would work for other people. And they were coming back with profound stories to tell of their own transformative experiences. So in May of last year, we had 10 or 12 people that were committed, and all those people but one swapped out. 4 of the individuals who came out on the fast with us are here today, 4 of the 6, and they have some stories to share with you as well. I want to kind of end with what we've done collectively as a society and as a community here in the United States to address the needs of veterans has been substantial, and some great momentum has been gained. In the one area that we're continuing to fail or miss the mark is with veteran suicide, and truly reaching and impacting in a really positive way the individuals who are genuinely struggling through this thing called transition, who are walking that fine line, that razor's edge between one more day and checking out. And we're stuck in a Western mindset where we believe that the square walls of a counseling center and the fluorescent lights and the pills are the only way through. And I'm here to tell you that as a 14-year veteran of the infantry, door kicking, bullet slinging, I had a hard time making the adjustment internal to come over to this hippy-dippy, which is not so hippy-dippy, way of doing things. And yet it's effective, and it works. And we see it through the results of our Seattle independent study and the ongoing study there. And we see it in the lives of the veterans who have participated, and we'll continue to see it in the lives of the veterans who participate. So I just kind of want to tie things up and say thank you for suiting up and showing up and being here today. And Jim, thank you, because I got your message about having a migraine, and I know what that's like. And I appreciate you making the trip north, brother. Thank you.
It's good to be here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.